Many people give up on big dreams and big ideas because they looked at a small result and decided it wasn't good enough. That's one view or one follower or one customer, and they just sort of walked away. Now this video is going to change the way that you think about progress and time, and also what it actually takes to build something amazing. And by the end of it all, I believe you're going to stop waiting for that big moment, and you are going to understand why those small moments are everything. This is what I call the number trap, and it's that so many people are so obsessed and fixated on the size of the numbers that they see. If that's views, followers, subscribers, revenue, money, could be anything. We treat these kinds of things as the measuring stick for whether or not we should keep pushing forward and keep chasing our dreams. But I think you need to reframe the way that you see these things. Imagine if that one view is a person sitting in a chair in front of you listening to you talk. Imagine what 100 views, that is 100 people surrounding you in a circle. It is so overwhelming and it would probably give you anxiety, but that's the reality. The number is not actually as small as it feels to you. And it's because we're so consumed by the giants and the biggest people around us that we forget the value of what it means to start out and go through those beginning phases. Now this video is not just for content creators. It applies to most people who are trying to build anything amazing for themselves. And maybe that's you. If you are perhaps a gamer trying to level up at a particular game, you want to start a business, maybe you want to get fit or try to learn a new skill, doesn't matter what it is. But the question we need to answer is, if the number is not the right thing to focus on, then what actually is the right thing that we need to focus on? In order to perfectly illustrate this point, I would like to tell you a beautiful story. In order for me to do that, I have to introduce you to Ben Saunders. He's an English polar explorer who is most known for his solo human-powered expeditions all over the Arctic, but in this case, his expedition to the North Pole, which is where our story takes place. Now, for a journey like this that is so arduous and grueling and taxing, it takes a lot of preparation, and there was a big problem for Ben at this time. His backpack that he had to carry behind him and drag all the way, it weighed over 440 pounds, which is over 200 kilograms, and that is not a survivable weight that you can manage over the distance that he needed to travel. So what did he do? He went through every single item one by one, looking for ways, small ways, that he could save on weight and save on convenience. So he took his Palm Pilot, for example, which was his means of communication in an emergency. He threw away his stylus because he realized if he took his toothbrush, he could cut his toothbrush in half. He could halve the weight of the toothbrush and he could sharpen the other end to replace the stylus for his Palm Pilot, and he's killing two birds with one stone. He took his shotgun, which he needed was essential for survival in case he found a polar bear or something threatening to his life, but he couldn't leave it behind. So he cut the barrel off and he made it a sawed-off shotgun in order to save more weight. And so the result of all these tiny little adjustments and savings going through his entire bag, it brought his total down to just over 220 pounds. That's almost half of his entire weight that he'd managed to shed. It's such a big difference, built almost entirely from tiny decisions made consistently across a specific vector. And so what that means is, even though not one of those individual changes it looked meaningful, the toothbrush, it only saved a few grams, but if you think about all of those grams compounded across every single item that he worked on, it saved his entire journey and enabled him to complete this expedition. And that could mean anything. That is your content, your business, or your game. These reps and the steps that you take, it doesn't look like much until you add them all up and you actually see how much you've built up when you look back. And that's the concept of marginal gains. It's the idea of the 1%, which whatever is relevant for you, you can change it to suit your needs. One view, one rep, one day, one step, doesn't matter. It's still the idea of just one. And if you think about it, 1% better every single day for an entire year is 365% of an overall improvement. And it's not just an incremental change, it's something that actually then leads to a massive transformation. If you think about this in contrast to trying to make massive leaps of progress in short periods of time, 15% better in 3 months, in a year, you're not actually as good as you could have been if you spread the weight of growth across a longer period of time. And a lot of people overestimate what we can do in a short period of time and underestimate what we can do in a long period of time. And so this is that shift in your mindset and your perspective that actually makes the difference, is the goal is not to be the best of the best immediately, but to just be consistently slightly better every single day. But there is, in my opinion, a very big obstacle that gets in the way for a lot of people. That's what I call the Dunning-Kruger plateau. It's just another thing that stops people from truly seeing the potential of their own success. That's not necessarily laziness or ego, because that's defeated simply by how badly you want the thing that you're chasing. Now, the Dunning-Kruger effect, if you don't know what it is, it's when you have a little bit of knowledge on any given topic that gives you a false sense of confidence, and you suddenly feel like you figured everything out before you actually have, when you in reality haven't even scratched the tip of the iceberg. And this is why people plateau and get stuck, is because they stop being a student of the game. They stop being a white belt, and they stop trying to get better because they think they know what better is. And so you flip that on its head and you get the better result, which is that the people who are genuinely great at things, they stay white belts. They stay in student mode for as long as they are playing the game. And it's that curiosity and the humility that is the real skill behind the growth and the success. So if you apply that to gaming, which then it becomes familiar for a lot of gamers, is that the player who refuses to improve their build and actually get better equipment, maybe they blame the game instead of the meta, that is when your growth stops and the learning stops. Speaking of learning, this would be a perfect opportunity for me to tell you about the link in my description for the lobby, which is my mailing list, and it would mean the world to me if you subscribed over there. We talk a lot about whatever is happening in gaming, cool things, and just cool stuff that we can go back and forth and talk about. And it will also mean a lot to me if you subscribe, hit that like button, and left us a nice little comment down below, because it really helps us out. And that's about all the promo that I'm going to do in this, and we're going to continue on with the video. Love you long time. So the payoff here, the thing that we're working towards, is the understanding that growth is actually not linear. And I'd like to talk about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example, BJJ. If anyone is unfamiliar with what that is, it is a submission grappling martial art that takes place on the ground. You can think of it as being very good at folding clothes while people are still wearing them, and you can imagine that must be super uncomfortable. Now, on average, to become a black belt, which is the benchmark of true mastery of this martial art, it would take you on average 10 years to achieve your black belt. And if you look at the fastest time that anyone has ever achieved a black belt in BJJ, it was BJ Penn, who got his black belt in 3 years because he was a genuine prodigy. He was an absolute anomaly, and also turned out to be an absolute legend in the UFC and one of the greatest fighters we'd ever seen. And the point of the story is that even though BJ Penn was all of those things, it still took him 3 years. So even in the best case scenario, it still takes time, and there is absolutely no way around that. There is no version of your dream or your goal that involves you skipping all the work that it takes to get there. But this isn't a bad thing, and I want you to see this in a positive way, because what that means is you don't have to be BJ Penn. So whether it takes you however long it takes you, the same goal is still available to you. The black belt can still be yours if you show up and you do things consistently. So the big idea is that when you stop thinking in days and weeks, and you rather start thinking in months and years, when you operate in that time vector, you become an unstoppable force of nature, because you understand then how growth actually works. So there's two ideas I would want you to take away from this video. The first one being marginal gains, the idea of the 1% every single day, and also the long horizon thinking, months and years, not days and weeks. That will be the most meaningful and valuable things for you to walk away with. And wherever you are right now, if you are in the thick of it, if you are maybe building something amazing, grinding towards something, you feel like things are too small and it doesn't really feel like you're getting anywhere, just understand that where you are now is not failure. It's just proof that maybe somewhere someone is listening, and that is enough to keep you going. Or maybe that's also enough for you to start if you haven't already. And so the people who win at this game, who win at life, are not always the most talented. They are the people who just didn't stop working, they didn't stop stepping forward, and they didn't stop trying day after day to get better at what they do. And perhaps the next big best thing is you.